Wait, why does that street have your name on it?
Well, son, let me tell you a little something about the history of the street.
You better get on down the stairs. You're gonna miss the bus.
Don't worry, Mom. I know a shortcut. I'll be on time for school.
What are you doing on this street, kid?
You know your dad's out on the street.
I'm just trying to get to school, but that was a shortcut.
That is a shortcut, all right.
What happened to you?
I got beat up going to school. I took a shortcut.
You should have left on time like I told you. Come on, son. I'll walk you to school. You know, just because you're different doesn't make you any less of a person. Things have been like this for a while now. The world just isn't ready for change. You remember learning about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., don't you? Well, he faced situations like this as well. But he didn't just sit idle. He made a change. He dreamed of change. And even today, the strength of that dream still leads the way. Now come on, son, I'll walk you to school.
Wake up, everybody, no more sleeping in bed. No more backward thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much from what it used to be. There is so much hatred, war and poverty. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Wake up all the teachers, time to teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen to what you have to say. 'Cause they're the ones who's coming up and the world is in their hands. When you teach the children, teach them the very best you can. Oh yeah.
The world won't get no better if we just let it be.
Oh no.
The world won't get no better. We gotta change again, just you and me. Wake up all the doctors, make the old people well. They're the ones who suffer and who catch all the pain. They don't have so very long before their judgment day. So won't you make them happy before they pass away? Oh yeah.
Wake up all the builders, time to build a new land. I know we can do it if we all lend a hand. The only thing we have to do is put it in our minds. Surely things will work out, 'cause they do every time.
Yeah. The world won't get no better if we just let it be. Oh, the world won't get no better. We gotta change again, just you and me. Yeah, 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 yeah.
some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Dan Rather reporting for CBS News from New York. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was shot to death by an assassin late today as he stood on a balcony in Memphis, Tennessee. Dr. King had planned to lead another civil rights protest.
I have a dream. We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
And gentlemen, President Jonathan Alger, James Madison University administrators, faculty, and staff, students, family, friends, and members of the community, and a special good evening to tonight's guest speaker, Dr. Steve Perry. My name is Donald Jones Jr., and I will be your master of ceremony for this evening. Will you please join me in giving another round of applause to the members of the artistic expression performance.
Hello, my name is Marissa Walker, and I'll be your mistress of ceremonies for this evening's program. Today, January 20th, 2014, marks the annual celebration of the national holiday honoring the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was very instrumental in promoting justice and equality throughout his life, and his courage continues to inspire us today. We would like to begin our program this evening in the same manner as many moments throughout the civil rights movement, in a time of reflection. In a sermon entitled, Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used the following words to encourage those individuals striving towards justice. Somewhere, we must come to see that human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts and the persistent work of those individuals who are willing to be co-workers of God. And without this work, time itself becomes an ally of the primitive forces of social stagnation. So we must help time and realize that time is always ripe to do right. We're going to win our freedom because both the sacred heritage of our nation and the eternal will of the Almighty God are embodied in our echoing demands. And that day, the morning stars will sing together, and the sons of God will shout for joy. God bless you.
On behalf of the Center for Multicultural Student Services, we would like to welcome each of you to our 27th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. At this time, we would like to invite President Jonathan Alger to offer the official welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. It's great to have you all here. And I want to add my welcome to our students, faculty, staff, community members. I know we have civic leaders here tonight as well. I saw our mayor earlier, so welcome to all of you. And of course, to our very special guest, Dr. Stephen Perry. We're very excited to have you here and to welcome you to our beautiful campus. You know, I have to say, I really love the theme for our celebration tonight. The strength of a dream still leads the way. As you might have noticed, we talk about dreaming here quite a lot at JMU, and we really mean it. Because we know that when this community gathers together to learn and grow and serve together, there's virtually no limit to what we can accomplish. This afternoon, I had the privilege, along with a number of other people, of welcoming local community leaders to our campus for the formal dedication, as you saw, of the newly renamed Martin Luther King Jr. Way. Now, as we know, Martin Luther King Jr.'s way was all about justice and community and service. So when we talk here about sharing Martin Luther King Jr. Way, it's not just a road to us, it's a calling and a way of life. Tonight, we gather to honor the legacy of Dr. King and all that his dream continues to represent to us in the 21st century. As some of you may know, yesterday I celebrated my 50th birthday. It was, thank you. I'm getting used to it now. It was also 50 years ago that the landmark Civil Rights Act was passed with the leadership of Dr. King. So we've seen a lot just in our lifetimes. And while many of us have seen positive changes, we know that we have a lot of work ahead of us to help make Dr. King's dream of true justice and equality a reality. There's much more to be done, and now it's our turn and our time to step up. Dr. King set a great example by using his gifts and his education for the betterment of all people. And he challenged all of us to do likewise when he said, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" This question goes to the heart of the university's new strategic plan adopted by the Board of Visitors just this past Friday, which calls upon JMU to be the national model of the engaged university, engaged with ideas and the world. At every turn, we should be asking ourselves how we can use the knowledge we create and share here to make an impact on the lives of others. So how will each of us answer that question? What are we doing for others? How will we use our gifts and talents to make a difference? I hope each of us can reflect on that question tonight as we welcome Dr. Perry to share his passion and his story with us. And just as we open doors on campus for each other, let's think about how we can open the doors of access and opportunity in education ever wider for those who come after us. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your passion.
Thank you, President Alger, for your warm welcome. At this time, we will now have two awards presentations. Ms. Michelle Miller will present the winners of this year's Martin Luther King Jr. Essay and Creative Expression Contest, and Mr. Calvin Walker will present the Alpha Phi Alpha Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Service Award. This will be followed by a performance by the Contemporary Gospel Singers.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michelle Miller, and I have the honor of presenting the winners of the Community Outreach Committee's Essay and Creative Expression Contest for the 2014 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. The members of the committee worked diligently to select 3 winners from the 140 submissions. We received submissions from local Harrisonburg and Rockingham County elementary schools, as well as the Boys and Girls Clubs of Harrisonburg and Rockingham County. This year's essay question was, now that we have a street named Martin Luther King Jr. Way in Harrisonburg, how will this keep Dr. King's dream alive? The winners for this year's contest were Sean Reinhart, a 4th grader at Plains Elementary School, Jaden Litton, who is also a 4th grader at Plains Elementary School, and David Weisman, a 5th grader at South River Elementary School. At this time, we would like the winners to come forth and share an excerpt from their expression pieces. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Sean and Jaden. We will have Sean Reinhart read an excerpt from his essay.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. fought for justice for all African Americans and wasn't scared. He fought for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He did not care if he died or any consequence. He wanted America to be free. He said, we should be cared for as much as any other person. He said it is unfair for anyone to be arrested just to sit down where they want to sit. And if I was him, I would say that too. He said, I have a dream that no one should be treated different, that all men should be treated equal. Kids should go to the same school and not be judged or treated badly because of their skin color. Dr. King was assassinated after sharing his dream in Tennessee. So we still celebrate his birthday and what he did for everyone and what he changed for all people. In the old days, there were black and white bathrooms, and there were black and white water fountains. Now do you see what he changed? Every day you should look around and see what he changed. And remember the last words heard from Martin Luther King Jr., I have a dream.
Thank you, Sean. Now we will have Jaden Litton read an excerpt from his essay.
Martin Luther King Jr. was a good man. He now has a street in Harrisonburg to remind people about his life and his I Have a Dream speech. He had to suffer death only because he followed his dreams. Martin Luther King Jr. was a great African American who was someone that believed that people should not be judged by their color. He believed in matters about the character and the heart of a person. And on August 28, 1963, the world heard his famous I Have a Dream speech.
Thank you, Sean and Jaden, for sharing parts of your essays with us this evening. For David Weisman's submission, he created a wonderful visual representation of how Dr. King's dream remains alive. David was not able to join us tonight, but his submission is being displayed on the screen. Let's give him a round of applause for creating such a thoughtful image. Each of these students will receive a gift bag, a book, and a certificate of recognition for all of their hard work. Let's give them another hand for all of their creativity and inspiration. The committee would like to thank all of those who participated in the 2014 Creative Expression and Essay Contest.
Good evening. My name is Calvin Walker, and I'm the president of the Xi Delta chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. For the last 107 years, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated has held in the highest of esteems the ideals of leadership, excellence, and most importantly, service. It is without question that our brother, the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., also valued these ideals. That is why each year, the Brothers of the Xi Delta chapter honor a member of the Harrisonburg community with the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Service Award. This award is presented to someone who not only embodies the characteristics of servant leadership exhibited by Dr. King, but also wholeheartedly makes an impact within the community by working tirelessly and encouraging this current generation. On February 12, 2013, Stan Macklin asked the Harrisonburg City Council to name a street in honor of the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. On April 9th of that year, a task force was appointed by the city to select a street to be named. On August 13th, 2013, in agreement with an overwhelming show of support, City Council voted to rename Cantrell Avenue to Martin Luther King Jr. Way. Had it not been for the groundwork done by Mr. Macklin, the renaming that we witnessed earlier this morning may not have come to fruition. Mr. Macklin is a graduate of Eastern Mennonite Seminary, and he has held several pastorates. Throughout his international travels, he has done multiple service projects in Jamaica and Africa. For 16 years, he served as Executive Director of Housing, Interdenominational Missions, a ministry to housing projects across America. For 12 years, he served as National President of the African American Mennonite Association. Stan is no stranger to organizing and has been a dedicated activist for most of his life. Mr. Macklin has been happily married for 42 years to his lovely wife, Diane, and is the proud father of 6 and grandfather of 10. Please join me in welcoming to the stage the president and founder of the Downtown Harriet Tubman Cultural Center, the dedicated man behind the effort to renaming a Harrisonburg street in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and recipient of this year's Xi Delta Community Service Award, Mr. Stan Macklin.
What can I say? A wonderful lady by the name of Maya Angelou, she did a poem that was called The Phenomenal Woman. But today I can say to her and to you, I feel like the phenomenal man. This is just amazing to know that how an idea can be embraced by hundreds. And I'd like to give a special thanks to the Center for the Multicultural Student Services and the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Xi Delta chapter for recognizing the works of your brothers and sisters in the community. We are well aware of you here, and we respect the education that you're getting here. We feel that together, with you being the next generation, we can definitely make a difference. And I'm just so glad and so honored to follow in the footsteps and the principles of a wonderful man who sacrificed his life so that we can have a better nation. Thank you. And I dedicate this to all of us, that together we can carry on this legacy. Thank you.
Please give another round of applause to the contemporary gospel singers for that wonderful performance. It is now my distinct honor and privilege of bringing forth to the podium tonight's guest speaker, Dr. Steve Perry. Dr. Perry is in a hurry to transform the educational experience for all children. Born into poverty, he believes that success in life is determined by where you end, not from where you start. It is this philosophy that inspired him early on to transform the lives of poor and minority children by providing them with access to a college education, and more recently, has inspired him to bring his ideas and passion to children everywhere, no matter their socioeconomic or academic background. In 1998, Dr. Perry founded CONCAP, the Connecticut Collegiate Awareness Program at Capital Community College. For a period of 6 years, the program sent 100% of its low-income first-generation graduates to four-year colleges. Then, in 2004, Capital Preparatory Magnet School was established in Hartford's lowest-performing district. Since its inception, that school, too, has sent 100% of its graduates to four-year colleges. Capital Prep has been recognized by U.S. News and World Report as one of America's best high schools. Dr. Perry's uncompromising, no-excuses approach to designing the ideal educational experience for children has led to his being featured on CNN's documentary Black in America, and from there an official role as a weekly education contributor to the network. His Perry Principles and other reportage, regular seen on both Anderson Cooper 360 and American Morning, tackles the most contentious issues being debated in American education. Dr. Perry is a columnist for Essence Magazine and the author of the best-selling self-published book, Man Up. He is also a nationally sought-after speaker who has appeared on hundreds of radio and television broadcasts at education and cultural forums around the country. In his forthcoming Push Has Come to Shove, Perry will spare no sacred cows in describing what steps need to be ensured that all American schools, whether urban or suburban, deliver a first-rate education to our kids, the kind of schooling that will return the United States to the top of the global education rankings. Please join me in welcoming to the stage tonight's guest speaker, Dr. Steve Perry.
Y'all better sit down before I think you're leaving. Wow, I feel like Michael Jackson with this big microphone. Thank you so much. I'm gonna come down. Terry, you got a tough job. You sure? You good? We brought Terry in from South Africa. She was gonna do another funeral, but. Folks, we're gonna have some fun. You know, my son follows me. My oldest son started following me on Twitter today. I told him to stop, because he saw that I had tweeted that we were going to have fun today, and, you know, he was all mizzy about it. He's like, well, what are they going to do down there? Are they like going to Disney or something? No, we're going to have a different kind of fun. The kind of fun that we're going to have is going to be the kind that challenges us to be better than we've ever been before. At James Madison, one of the things that I've found out is not just that this school started as a teacher's college, but there's a affection that you seem to have for your school. It's a strange thing, because there's some places where first thing y'all want to do is get up out of here, but I don't think you guys are ever leaving. You go ahead and clap, because it's true. You have a fine president. President Alger, thank you so much for welcoming me. I'm excited to be here because I know that you understand that a celebration is a celebration. Action is something different. You get the difference. A march around this beautiful campus is not necessarily a march. Y'all get that, right? Okay. See, my job here is not to make friends, but to make an impact. So you don't have to clap, because I promise you I got a flight going back, rain, sleet, or snow. But what I do need you to understand is that I'm compelled to challenge you to be better than we've ever been before, because while we're celebrating a man whose life was taken from him, this is not somebody who died of old age, who passed away. He was murdered for speaking the truth. So if you came here to hear anything other than that, you came to the wrong place. You paid too much. See, because what I've seen is that while we fight for integrated schools, most of our black children still go to failed schools where most of the children there are black. Latino children still go to schools in which they are the majority, and there's an achievement gap that is killing us. The reason is because we've spent too much time focusing on the ceremony, the pomp and circumstance, trying to say the right thing the right way, waiting for the right time. Dr. King was fond of saying that there is no right time for change. Every time is the right time for change. And so we have this conversation around change and making an impact, but what I find is that when we look at the data tells us that we've changed very little. So no, there are no white drinking fountains and black drinking fountains, but there are schools that don't educate black kids, that pay people to work in them and come up with excuses as to why children cannot be educated. See, you can't tell me, because see, I work in one of those schools, and I've seen firsthand that when you set the expectations high, great things happen. When you believe that everything is possible, some things start to change. And what I see is we spend too much time worried about working grown folks' nerves as opposed to working to make sure children are in a better space. We've spent too much time in places like Virginia looking back, but not looking forward, not understanding that we still have fights to be fought. Just because you can walk down a street that's named after a king doesn't mean you're treated like one. Just because we can be honored in a place like this does not mean that we are all honored as human beings. Because until such time as we put the effort in to get a black student from a nearby school as we do to get a black athlete from anywhere on earth. Yeah, I brought the wrong one if you thought I don't know who you thought you brought. I'll say it again. When you decide that black people and Latinos, when you decide the diversity is that important, that you will make it your business because the athletic department can find some black people. They can find them. They can find them and they can bring them here and they can put academic supports around them to make sure, if nothing else, they stay eligible. See, if we're going to have a conversation, you got to have a conversation. In order for us to make the changes, we have to start looking at the reality. I'm going to tell you there's an elephant in the room. It's all too easy for us to have the comfortable parts. I memorized the whole Dr. King, I Have a Dream thing too. So I get up here and hit you with some of that, and woo, yeah. But that ain't going to do us any good because I'll walk out clapping things and what do you say? A dream without action is sleep. And there's nothing impressive about sleep because even a baby can do it. What we need to do is to look at the real facts that in this country still today, there is an apartheid. In this country still today, some children will receive access and others will not. Zip code discrimination will put certain children in certain failed schools and other children will live a wonderful life. And don't think for a second because you are the one living a wonderful life that you are so much better than the others. Don't think because of an accident of birth, because somebody picked a house somewhere where they have good schools, that somehow you are so much better than the other one who didn't end up with that luck of the draw. When a community decides that every single child is important and every single child will feel important, one of the reasons why children hurt other children is not because they don't love those children, it's because they don't love themselves. Hurt people. And when you go to schools in which you know you're not loved because you walk around the school and it feels like nobody loves anybody, everybody's just trying to get out of here. It's hard to feel a sense of self. It's hard to feel meaningful. We can't think that Dr. King put his life on the line. I mean, let's be honest. He had a beautiful wife and kids. He had a good life, man. Y'all need to understand. He was living in Atlanta. He could have been all right. He could have been like so many of us black people. See, I'm going to talk to black people for a little while. White people, you listen up. If I say something that sounds like you're going to agree with too much, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't take this as an opportunity for you to say something slick, because let's just keep it honest. But I can't just talk about some people and not talk about our people, because we as a community need to do better. When black people decide that they've had enough, when we decide that education is important to us, as important as, singing, as, playing sports, we'll put our kids in cars and drive them all over the place like we do for an AAU game. We'll spend as much money as we do on footwear. We'll focus on taking them from wherever they are to where they need to be, because we will love ourselves enough to challenge ourselves to not wait for somebody else to come and do what we need to do for ourselves. We will go to our preachers and suggest that maybe this year's pastor's anniversary doesn't need to be so ostentatious. I told you I'm going to get off, just working my way through. Because the only way we're going to get from where we are to where we need to be is if we wake up from this slumber. We've been lulled into this notion that because there are laws that the world has changed. Dr. King said it very clearly. There are beautifully written laws that are completely unfollowed. That was his frustration as his life came to a close. He recognized that he had done all these things, and he talked about this. He said in one of the best books I've ever read, Where Do We Go From Here? Community of Chaos. Dr. King wrote this. At the end of his life, he talked about black nationalism. He talked about the Black Power movement. He said that that was the direct result of people feeling like they had been promised hope for so long and not getting it. He said that at some point you get to the point where you just have had enough. And you can't be polite anymore. You can't be kind anymore. Well, that's not organized anymore, but it is the same. That same level of rage is making its way all over our community. All over our community, children feel unsafe in their own homes. Think about that for a second. There was a recent report that came out. I don't even know that I believe it, but I was asked to comment on it. It said that 50% of all African Americans under 23 had been arrested. Even if it's wrong by a little, even if it's only 25%. We are looking at incarceration rates that would make slavery look like a warm-up. We're still looking at a time in which African Americans graduate from high school, in some cases 4 years behind white children. And we act like we don't know. We all want to be so politically correct. We don't want to call a spade or a failed system a failed system, because to do so means some grown people are going to have to lose their jobs. Some people are going to have to find something else to do, because, see, I don't believe that you can be taught to teach. I know y'all got a little program here. There's some people getting taught to teach, but I'm just going to be honest with you. You still got some time. There's some other majors on campus. I believe that you are born to teach, just like you are born to sing. Like, you could sing, but you can't sing. And teaching is the same way. If you are called to teach, it's something that you do. You just do it all the time. It's who you are. You can't stop teaching. If you are called to teach, you are not thinking about having your summers off. You are looking for a hookup. And you need to find something else to do with your life. See, because what has happened has been there's so many people who are working in our schools who do not have our children's interests at heart. They're looking out for self. This is all about them. And those are the same people who will tell you over and over, you can't measure learning. Tests don't take. They're lying. Because if tests don't matter, tell them to stop giving them. The only tests that don't matter are the ones that are going to measure them. The only tests that they don't want to hear about are the ones that could possibly, my grandmother used to say, might could have an impact on their employment. We are at a time like no other. We've never had more access to wealth and resources than we have now, and never been so far away from it. We talk about the achievement gap as if it is a standard, as if it's supposed to be, as if it's got to be that way. But I'm here to report from Hartford, Connecticut, little bitty town. When we started our school, 29% graduation rate in the city. 29, that ain't a graduation rate. I just want to break that down to you. That's a polite way to say dropout. I'll give it to you differently. If you went to your hairdresser and there was a 79% chance of her burning all your hair out, right? Gentlemen, if your wife was faithful 29% of the time, not really faithful. We started a school because we believed that if you give children high expectations, you will get great results. And if you believe in children, if you love them from your core, love them from your soul, I mean love, like say love, that they will do things for themselves that will change your heart. We have no achievement gap at Capital Prep. And the only thing that's amazing about that is it's not typical. You saw two beautiful young boys stand up there. There's no difference between those two children. There's no difference between their capacity. We keep allowing ourselves to be lulled into this liberal stupor, this politically correct space where we think that if we say that some people are bad at teaching and some people are bad at being a principal and that some schools need to be shut down, that somehow that's bad. I think one of the most important things you can do for somebody is tell them what they ain't good at. They stop wasting their time and find something meaningful. See, if the civil rights movement began with education and James Madison began with education, then maybe we're in the place that we need to be to start talking about doing something about education. Maybe this is the right place. Maybe you are the right people. Because what Dr. King wanted us to understand is that just talking ain't enough. You have to do something. You have to make something happen. If it's something as simple as going to a nearby school and tutoring, then that's something. But that something ain't enough. People say it can't be that bad. I say I don't know if I want to be around here when it gets worse. How many more children do we have to see die? And I'm not just talking about a metaphoric death. I'm talking about real, put them in a coffin, put them in the ground death. How many more children do we have to see give up on education because they feel like there's no place in it for them? By the time a boy is in the 2nd and 3rd grade, he's already been suspended for being a boy. See, if we really want to open this thing up, then we got to have an honest conversation. We got to start changing the way in which we educate, because all the other issues run through this. Because before there was an attorney, there were teachers. Before there were doctors, there were teachers. Before there was anything, there was somebody to teach them how to do it. There's nothing that is done that somebody didn't teach somebody to do. Even if you discovered it, somebody taught you how to discover. And so here we are. Here we are in this place, this beautiful place, where we have the opportunity to make some changes. If Egyptians, that Egypt, the real Egypt, can take a regime and turn it on its ear with Facebook, what could James Madison do? What could y'all do with all these resources around here? If you're like me, I'm almost a little embarrassed. You guys got it good. I see why you don't want to leave. It's gaudy. President, it's gaudy. Y'all, Just being honest. I look around, even in the dark, you got a lot. But one of the things that I know is that to whom much is given, and as a result, y'all got to get to work. It's not enough just to hear people speak. You have to do something. You have to organize. Not just organize for the sake of organization. You got to organize to do something. One of my greatest frustrations with the African Americans who are in my generation and before, we organize for the sake of organization. We can throw an event like nobody's business. So many of us are in so many organizations, so many dues coming out of the house, it feels like a mortgage payment. None of you kids will get that. Don't worry about it. It'll take you a little while. Somebody explain it to you. But you have to organize to do something. You have to organize to do something. And dare I say, why not change policies to make it possible for all children to have school choice? Why not? Why force a child to go to a failed school simply because she was born into that community? Why say to a child that you are doomed to failure simply because your parents did not have the money to get you up out of there? See, poverty is often used as a battering ram, as something to shove down the throats of people who are trying to make change, because you will often hear people talk about poverty as this immovable object. They talk about poverty as if it's experienced the same way by everybody. But everybody who's ever been poor knows that poverty is not the same for everybody. There are poor people who work. There are poor people who have 2 jobs. There are poor people who are in college, maybe at James Madison right about now, feeling like they're getting poorer. Poverty is not experienced the same way by everybody. Some of y'all got stopped up with a block of cheese. Apparently not as many as I know. Some of you have had a Wonder Bread cheeseburger. Do you know the kind that sticks to your fingers after? Apparently not you guys. Well, call somebody who was officially poor. Meet a friend. The point is this, that poverty has never, ever stood in the way of education. Never. The only place it stands is in policy. Because there are some people in here right now, we can't tell which one they are, but for the fact that there's grants and loans and what have you, who would not be here today, who are poor today. Tonight, they are poor. Legitimately, federally government stated that they are under the poverty line, and some of them are whooping your behind in class. Some of them are so hungry you ain't never gonna beat them. I promise you. I don't care what such and such a school you came from. I don't care who your people are. They're gonna beat you. Some of them came here, can barely speak the language. They're gonna beat you. They're hungry. They're hungry in a way that you can't manufacture in any other place. Only in the belly of poverty can that come from. Only that that's only theirs. You can see it in their eyes. There's something different about them. They ain't gonna lose, man. Under no circumstances. The only way they lose is if we put them in a failed school. One that robs them of the opportunity to learn, so that when they come to campus, one of the first things they do is they write a paper, and that thing comes back, looks like the teacher just took a marker. She ain't even try. She just scribbled down all the way. You came from this school and you thought, wow, I thought I was smart. And you come to campus and they say, no, not so much. You are smart. You are very smart. In order for you to make it here from there, you're really smart. You're different. You're different than anybody else. You're blessed in ways in which it's hard to explain. But you shouldn't have to be so special to make it to college in America. It shouldn't seem to be this impossible task in the United States of America. You shouldn't be more likely to drop out of high school than to get to college because you go to certain schools. It shouldn't be that way. What good is all of this that you have here if you can't share it with anybody? What good is having this beautiful building and this wonderful campus and these great professors if you're the only ones who are going to get it? When it starts to set down inside you, your conscience has to kick in. And you have to think that there are people out there just as good as you, if not better, who won't get a chance to experience this. And that's just not right. Not in this country. Not in a place where we've buried great leaders who spent their entire life fighting for equity. We have an opportunity now to make a change, and what that means to me is to fight for something that's going to do something. When I say school choice, what I mean is this. I mean that a child gets to go to the school that is best for that child. If it's another neighborhood school, then it's another neighborhood school. If it's a charter school, if it's a magnet school, if they voucher out to a private school. See, because you guys believe in vouchers. I'll prove it to you. Anybody believe in Pell Grants? Okay, good. That's a voucher. That's federal money that could be used for private school or public school. But you get to make that decision. School choice is the type of thing that even King fought for. In his book that I just mentioned, he talks about desegregation, and he says, do not wait for the neighborhoods themselves to be desegregated. He said, build educational parks, which is what we would now refer to as a magnet school. He said that will draw people in from all around. This that I see before me is what he dreamed of. This that I see before me was what he was living for. But the fact that there's not more of it isn't why he died. He wanted it for everybody. And I think you want it for everybody. I think you recognize that tonight something in you has to change. Something's got to kick in, a sense of responsibility that I got to do something. Because what I'm doing is not enough. Because if it was enough, then we wouldn't be here. If any one of us, including me, starting with me, if any one of us was doing all that needed to be done, we wouldn't be where we are. Every child will be reading in a school in which they learn to read. We wouldn't be blaming parents every chance we get. Look, I get it. Grown people are the hardest part about running schools. I mean, really, because grown people are aggravating. I ain't gonna lie to you. They come in a whole entire mess. I guess pajama pants are the new chic. But my job is to educate a child, as Dr. King said, so that no one can tell who his parents were. My job is to make sure that no matter who comes through those doors, that the person that I send out is going to be one that can change the world. No one knows what's in the heart of a child, not one of us. But our job as educators is to breathe life into that dream, to wake them up from wherever they stand, to make them believe in the unbelievable. The most amazing part about education is that we make dreams come true. Miracles every day. Miracles. Making kids believe that just because everybody else in their family is not good at school doesn't mean that they have to be bad at it. That's what we do every day. But we could sure use some support right there on the front lines. I need you to fight to make sure that organizations that are holding us back don't get to hold us back anymore. Whether it be a teachers union or a teachers association, anybody who is more concerned about the grown people in the building than they are the children is not doing what they need to do for kids. I don't care who you are. The schools are for kids. If you are more concerned about job security and working environment than you are about learning environment, then you are not helping our kids. And just because you used to be a friend doesn't mean you are always a friend. A friend can change into something else. When they begin to focus on themselves more than they do you, they are no longer your friend. Think about it. There's some people you just can't call anymore. You call them and you have good news and they got better news. You have one of those friends who everything you got, they've got a better version of it. You feeling good today, they saved somebody's life. You got a headache, they got a tumor. Things don't have to stay the same. But what we do know is this, that the opportunity is now for us to make a change. You can do something. See, people like you, young people like you with strong backs and minds have been the force behind civil rights forever. But I'm concerned about your generation because I don't really know what's going on with y'all. I don't get it. With so many resources at your disposal, you're getting whooped by the rest of the world. See, I don't believe in the achievement gap. I believe in the access gap. I believe if you take an iPhone or a Droid or whatever you use, and you give it to a poor kid, and you take this same device and you give it to a wealthy kid, I want you to show me the achievement gap. There isn't one. It's an access gap. So if they can both operate this machinery, which, by the way, I know I'm going to struggle with, then clearly they can both learn, and neither one of them has ever read a manual in their life. Then we have something in your generation if we could just harvest it. If we can get your courage up to fight for something other than parking spaces on college campuses. If something could be more meaningful than whether or not your cable is on. If we could get you to use the phone for something other than to text, you know what I'm about to say. Those things. You have so many devices and resources at your disposal, but what are you doing with them? How are you changing the world? You're just consumers. What are you going to do? When are you going to answer the call? When are you going to organize? You don't need thousands. You could be 4 or 5 of y'all. You pick the issue. I'm not telling you what the issue is. I think it's education. If it's not, that's just your thing, do something else. But do something. Stand for something. Be known as that person who stood for something. Be respected as that person who wanted to change other people's lives. What is all this education for but to keep to yourself? What are all these resources for if you're just keeping it to yourself? What good is a life that does not change other lives? We celebrate a birthday in part because we believe that there's something so good about the birth and life that the life itself is going to impact the other lives. But if your impact continues to be diminished by your unwillingness to get out and do something, then what are you doing with this life that you have? Black and white. Because black and Latino people, we ain't put ourselves in this situation. We ain't just get here by ourselves, so we ain't going to get out this hole by ourselves. We have to do this together. We have to find a way to work together. We have to find a way to make sure that we have the highest expectations of schools. If it says school on it, people should learn in it. Revolutionary thought. If people call teachers, they should teach. But you, the students, what will you do? Which one of you will challenge the others among you to do something? Where is the leader in this room? Where are the leaders in this room? Where are the people who are going to do something different? Who are the ones who are going to stop complaining and make something happen? Who are the ones who are going to be the ones who are just here to do something, and the others who have made a difference? Who are those students? See, I believe that what we do to pay the bills is how we make a living. What we do to pay back our debt is how we make a life. And when you're in the process of making a life, you ain't never working. It never feels like work because you know that it's going to get harder every day, but every day that it gets harder, you know you're getting closer and closer to making something happen. When will you challenge yourselves to be that place? Why not here at James Madison? Why not? It's got to happen somewhere. You're supported by your administration. I've seen it. I've talked to them. They care about you. Nobody's standing in your way but you. You've told everybody you're grown. Prove it. If you're so grown, prove it. Do something. This is your time. Don't just celebrate King. I mean, that's not it. It's, you know. I think he would be offended by just a celebration. I don't think that he would even come. I think he'd be embarrassed by it, to be very honest with you. I think the first words out of his mouth is, we ain't even there yet. I don't even know what you're celebrating. I don't think he wanted us to celebrate him. I think he wanted us to emulate him, to be rabble-rousers, to twist and turn the status quo until it is no longer. So whatever it is you decide that matters to you, start on it tonight. Look, when we started our school, I had a meeting at my dining room table, and, you know, a bunch of black people. And because, you know, we had a plan. We were going to take black people and educate only black kids to prove that racism didn't matter. Okay, it doesn't make sense now, but it made sense in my head. So we had a glorious meeting because, you know, brothers and sisters, we know how to meet. We, Robert's rules, all that. We got you. We'll break it down. And that meeting took place in 2002. And if we have a second meeting, I'm sure it's going to be just as good as the first one. See, because what I had to do is I had to wake up. And I had to get some Baganskis and Wojnarts, Capralises, got a Williams and an Ali just to keep it funky. But I had to put together a team that wanted to win, that believed that our children, regardless of their hue, could be great. Before we started a school, I had never met anybody who started a school. Before I wrote my first book, I'd never met an author. There's nothing special about me. Nothing. Grew up with nothing. Except for this, a dream. When you believe, and nobody else has to believe this, but when you believe that there's something special inside you, nobody can convince you otherwise. Not one person. I remember one time I was at my grandmother's house and I looking and there was a basketball rim. And I had watched one of those superhero movies and I had seen them bend the rim. You know what I mean? Something like that. So I figured I would do the same thing. So I looked at it. It didn't bend. And I looked at it some more. Didn't bend. I turned to the side and I looked at it some more. And I said, I don't feel like bending it today anyway. When you know that there's something special inside you, nobody can convince you otherwise. Not one person can tell you that anything. Not one person. When you believe that you can change the world, you really can. When you believe there's something different inside you, I swear to God, my grandmother say, I swear for God, that there is something inside you. When you believe in your soul that you have been kissed on the forehead by the Creator himself, when he has put an idea on your heart, I promise you, nobody can take it away. It will keep you up at night. It will be the thing that you talk to your friends about, the first thing out of your mind, the first thing every single time. When you have something on your heart, it is only yours. It is yours and yours alone. When he gives it to you, it's yours. And when you decide to do something with it, when you open up, that is the gift. People talk about being gifted. There's your gift. That's it. You find your purpose. When you listen to that thing inside you, it's screaming out. It's screaming. You feel like I got to do something. You do. That's the point. That's what brought you here tonight. You're supposed to be here because you're supposed to be hearing something that makes you feel like I'm supposed to do something. You are. You are. You are supposed to wake up and stop dreaming and start doing. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Dream was one of equality and justice for all people. Today, we honor his courage and strength to love in the face of hate and his ability to act in the face of fear. In our Sea of Lights candle lighting ceremony, each lit candle symbolizes a strong character that is committed to upholding Dr. King's vision. It is a time for us to reflect upon our own character and remember his legacy. The lighting of the candles unites the JMU and Harrisonburg communities in their dedication to upholding Dr. King's vision. At this time, we will ask that President Alger light our first candle, followed by our speaker, Dr. Steve Perry.
Dr. Mark Warner, Senior Vice President of Student Affairs and University Planning. Dr. Jerry Benson, Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs. Mr. Nick Langridge, Vice President for University Advancement. Ms. Diane Stamp, Associate Vice President for Budget Management, representing Administration and Finance. Ms. Donna Harper, Vice President for Access and Enrollment. Dr. David Awusu Ansah, Special Assistant to the President. Mr. Arthur T. Dean II, Special Assistant to the President. Mr. Jake Jedlicka, Student Government Association President. Ms. Alexis Sims, MLK Formal Program Committee Student Co-Chair. And Mr. Alan Jones, Center for Multicultural Student Services Graduate Assistant.
Thank you. On your program, you will see a list of participants, and throughout our audience are representatives from the JMU and Harrisonburg communities, each with their own candle. We will now ask all the representatives from the JMU faculty and staff to please stand and remain standing and light your candles. We will now ask all the representatives from JMU student organizations to please stand and remain standing and light your candles. We will now ask all other participants in our Sea of Light celebration throughout the audience to please stand, continue standing, and light your candles. We will now ask everyone else to please stand and join us in singing of the National Black Anthem. Lift every voice and sing.
I hope you all have enjoyed our annual celebration program honoring Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I would now like to ask Ms. Valerie Gant, Director of the Center for Multicultural Student Services, to come and provide us with the closing remarks.
They weren't expecting me to come from the rear. Wow, I'm looking at the sea of lights, and it is absolutely beautiful. So why don't you give yourselves a round of applause? What a wonderful, wonderful evening this has been as a culmination to just an incredible week of celebration for the life and the legacy of Dr. King. And not just Dr. King, but so many others who I call them the bridges that brought us over. So many people who gave their life and sacrificed so much for us to have this opportunity to come together and even celebrate not just Dr. King's life, but their life as well. I'd like to thank everyone on behalf of the Center for Multicultural Student Services here on the campus at James Madison for your continued support and encouragement in all of the programming and all the efforts of our students. I'd like to thank our speaker for the evening, Dr. Steve Perry, for those marvelous, challenging, and insightful words. You certainly have left us with some things to think about, and in particularly for our students, as you are embarking on your careers and studying and doing all of the hard work to enter into our society, each one of us has to give an account for the behavior and the actions, the words that we even say. This is a great opportunity to listen to what Dr. Perry, the sentiments of his heart, to really think about how you can help make a life versus making a living. That really resonated for me. I think here at James Madison, we hear it over and over again with President Alger, to dream big. I didn't tell him, President Alger, that was sort of a motto that we have here. But that sentiment to keep dreaming and why Dr. King's dream is still alive in each one of us, it keeps echoing over and over all week long and even all day long. There must be something to it. Take heed while you can. Really think about how your life is just a fleeting moment. It can be like a vapor, but the time that you take right now, young folks, to really think about where you're going with this thing called life, make a difference today. And I like Dr. Perry said, it can start tonight. It doesn't have to start in 2 years. You can start dreaming tonight. So thank you so much. To President Alger, you've been with us all day long and all week long. And I thank you on behalf of the center and all of the students who worked so hard from the fall semester to get here. We thank you for your support, and so many others. I'm not going to spend time calling names, but you know who you are, all of our administrators, our faculty, our staff, our students. We can't do this without you. This is a JMU-wide opportunity. I would be remiss to miss thanking the community for coming out. We've had a great time today. All of our community members, Dr. Stan Macklin, Mr. Stan Macklin, congratulations on your community service and for being that lone voice in the wilderness. I'm sure it felt that way for a season, and challenging the city, challenging the minds of the city to create a street or change the name of one of our streets to MLK Jr. Way. Congratulations. To our young people, our creative expression winners from Plains Elementary and South River, you warmed our hearts. Keep writing, keep believing, keep dreaming. And we celebrate our young people in the house and all of the other young people who are here tonight from K through 12. And I know the Boys and Girls Club Board of Directors are here, and you're really proud of your young students. So congratulations to you as well. And then to Ms. Hardy, Tara Hardy, our sign interpreter. She's worked hard all night long and all day on the March and Speak Out as well. I could go on and on. I like to thank people, and you all know that. But I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to simmer down. My heart is just overjoyed for the students who worked hard to make this week special and this night in particular. And to our student co-chair, Alexis, congratulations, and Michael Frimpong, job well done. Let's give them a round of applause. We thank you again for coming out. Have a wonderful evening. And remember, the dream doesn't stop here tonight, but we start working on those things, those ways in which we can impact a life and not just make a living. God bless and good night.